Well, so I don't see it on our rundown, and I think now might be a small time to just put it in here. But we're talking about game sevens. Man, hockey has been awesome in the past week. Like, I'm not super
Yeah.
into the NHL. Obviously we had Paul on a couple weeks ago to talk about it, but I've been watching Connor McDavid and the Oilers, and on Saturday, Connor McDavid, like he won the game. Like, I was just like, this dude is so good. And
Yeah.
Paul said, like, yeah, he might be in the best guy on ice since Gretzky. And I was like, oh, come on. Like, that's just clickbait. And then I watch him, I'm like, okay, wow, this guy's getting good. Like, yeah, he's really good. So I was watching it last night. I am a fan of the Minnesota Wild, and we didn't end up making it out of our series, but Connor McDavid ends up getting they do the 3 stars at the end of the game. Connor McDavid got the 1 star spot because he put his team out. He scored some goals in big moments, and Connor McDavid's Oilers went past the Kings. And I think, like, we can't avoid, like, I know we have people that are wanting hockey conversation, and to be honest, like, I don't really think me and you are the guys that should be the best at that conversation, but I think it is worth me saying, like, this dude, when you look at him and when you watch him play, it's incredible.
Yeah, I agree with everything you just said. I think I want to do some more research into hockey and some into hockey cards over the hockey off season, because I think there's it's silly to not
Yeah.
do that because there's going to be so many more plays happening in hockey. But I mean, you could make an argument that Connor McDavid should be in our top 10, if not our top 5 on the Sports Card Investment Report. He's number 33 right now, and we've steadily
Yeah.
moved him up. I think
I
that he's
mean,
a guy that deserves to
if
be.
he is an active goat, then yeah,
Yeah,
you would want to move him up. But I think that's something that me and you are learning, is to be like, we're always pushing into new areas of our hobby, and if we're doing that, then this is an area that I'm kind of trying to learn. This is, I don't know a whole lot about hockey. There's been seasons in my life where I really liked it and dove into it. When I was in high school, I watched the Stars pretty much every game. And I was really excited about it. And then I just kind of fell off. And then now I'm watching the Wild every once in a while, but I'm not really that dedicated. And so anyway, I'm looking forward to the off season to be able to pick up some cards, some of those young gun cards at a little bit more of a decent discount. So
yeah, I think that's the play. I think, and it even says here, I'll just give you guys, like for those of you that aren't premium subscribers, like the play with McDavid is like it literally says we're waiting for the offseason to buy more NHL cards. I mean, including
right,
McDavid, just because, and that probably is why he's in the 30s and not like in the top 10 right now, because it's just not the time to buy his cards. And so, but I mean, and then the other guy's Austin Matthews in Toronto. Unfortunately, he had the opposite result. I think he lost in a game 7
yep,
against Tampa Bay. And so, but Austin Matthews is another Paul Fisher guy. Thanks, Paul, for mentioning him. And Austin Matthews is like, I believe, around the same age as McDavid. He's in the other conference. He scored 60 goals this year, which is ridiculous, and finished 6th in
that
points.
seems
And
pretty good.
so I think, yeah, 60 goals, I think, was the first time since maybe 2017 that somebody's done that. And I know it hasn't been done very often. So it's definitely like a historic number. And Austin Matthews is kind of like the mini Connor McDavid, I guess. Maybe people in Toronto will be mad at me for saying that, but I think like uh, he's somebody who is probably, you could probably start looking into his card prices and seeing if they've dipped since they lost. And but I mean, those two guys I think are the guys that I'm going to be monitoring in the offseason, and then also trying to figure out like who's next. I know a lot of people are looking at Ovechkin. They're probably people looking at Sidney Crosby and Evgeny Malkin and everything in Pittsburgh because they're still alive in the playoffs. But I think like I want to know who I want to know who the prospects are. I want to get into that, and I'd love anybody to make a comment on who they're following with hockey, because yeah, the more people that bring up hockey to us, the more we learn about it and the more content we put out about it, because it becomes top of our mind. Kendall and I are both the same. We're like, oh, someone tells us something, like we'll admit we don't know that much about
Right.
it, but we're gonna go research the heck out of it and then come back with a take that like we think makes sense. So let
Yeah, I
us know what
think
you think about hockey for sure.
there's a guy, Kirill. Kaprizov. He's a guy that's a young player on the Wild, but I just don't know. Like, I don't know enough about hockey to like really dive in. I know this guy's young. I
Mm-hmm.
know he was potentially one of the best in the world, but I don't know. We don't, obviously we're not political on this show, but there are like these massive players in this sport that are Russian. It's like, how
Yep.
does that
Yep.
involve in an investment market? Like, how do we do that? Like, and so I'll just be honest. I don't know. I don't know where, what that looks like. And so I don't know if that potentially hinders his price value just because of the nation he's from. I hope it doesn't, unless he has some sort of tie with some administration or something. But, you're seeing that with like Chelsea and some other like sports clubs around the world that are engaging with that stuff. And I don't know. I think Kirill would be a cool one that I've been watching, but I'm kind of afraid to put some dollars there just because of the scene of the world. But I know we don't really want to get into that, but it's
Yeah.
something that you gotta talk about when you're talking about investing.
You you got to look at it because I'm glad you brought that up, and we won't need to talk about it too much, but it is a good point because there's so many different places to put your money within sports cards. It's like there's
Like, do
other
you
things you
take
can
that
do,
risk?
and so if you buy someone and you don't really fully understand the ramifications of why the market may not want them, um,
Mm-hmm.
that's just one really good example by you of like why the market might not want them. And it almost doesn't matter what people's political beliefs are. It's like if people aren't buying their card for whatever reason, then you probably shouldn't buy their card as an investment, and like, I
Yeah.
saw it happen in Formula One. When I started getting into F1 earlier this year, I was looking for sleepers, and I was like, and there's a lot of really investable F1 cards that are just like
Mm-hmm.
autographed, or Topps Dynasty is something that I'm like super intrigued by. I'll talk more about that. I actually wrote a lot about that on the members only content that I was talking about at nooffseason.com. But anyway, there's a Russian F1 driver from last year who's been kicked out of F1. And
Oh,
so,
geez.
his really nice cards are they're just not selling. They're selling, but they're selling for like pennies, or just dollars. And like every other F1
Wow.
card is like hundreds of dollars. So it's a
Yeah.
generalization there, and people are probably going to be screaming into their headphones at like the details of what I'm talking about. But I don't really want to get into the details. I'm just giving you the
Yeah.
generalization that Kendall's making a
Yeah.
really good point here. So
And large, I mean, even just larger, there are, to be a sports card investor, you have to know the market cycles. And like, you can't just be watching the game. You can't just be watching the games anymore. You can't, because our media is so all inclusive. Like, you've got to know some of the markers around these players that are, like, it goes back to the LeBron thing. Like, for instance, for me, I think LeBron is a really good investment because it's on the Magic Johnson thing. Like, when LeBron gets out of the league, he's going to be doing stuff all over business. Like, this dude is just already a
yeah,
businessman, and so like when you look at the profile of how is he going to continue to be in the media over and over and over, and how is that going to continue to be a reminder that, I mean, like, that's a positive. But then at the other side, you have to think of the negatives. Like, you have to think of the people that adversely are going to affect their pricing because of the all-encompassing media that we have in this day and age. So I didn't want to bring up politics, but at the same time, it's like, sometimes you've just got to know this card is going to have some sort of a marker on it just because of who he is. So, and I
yeah,
don't know if like, I know nothing about him. I'm just saying, like, that might be a caution to be like, should I invest in him, or should I go a little bit higher and invest in Connor McDavid in the offseason? Like, which one is going to have less barriers to entry? Obviously it's a much different price point. I think a PSA 10 Young Guns of Kirill is like $700. I think a PSA 10 of Connor McDavid is like several $1,000s. So it's much
yeah,
different of a price point. But anyway, so that's my small little hockey
yeah.
talk.
For sure, for sure. You know, that's what the investment report's all about. Like, I know I keep saying it, but it's all about, like, you know, if you're gonna get in on McDavid, like, you're probably looking at 5 figures, you know, and so you better,
Yeah,
you know,
it's
you
not a
better
cheap
hope
buy.
that, yeah, you better hope that he's gonna go up. You know, like, it's not the lesson I learned the hard way. Becoming a sports card investor is like, just because a card's hot today doesn't mean I mean, it literally might be like down 20% the next day. So you've got
Right.
to, it
Yeah.
is about the market cycles and learning when to, just because something's rising doesn't mean